Welcome to the 30-Minute Hour. It's the personal development podcast for entrepreneurs and executive leaders who are looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday.
Yes, it is. It is indeed a happy Monday. Yep, it's going to get even happier, Ted, because today we're going to talk about the secret to taking a secure risk. That's right. We're going to talk
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to talk about going forward. We're going to talk about playing defense and playing offense. Everybody says defense wins championships, but offense is helpful too. So,
Okay.
So we're going to talk about how to accomplish that. And we're going to go ahead and get right to it because I know our guest has a lot to share on this topic. He brings a lot to the table. He's a vice president of cybersecurity and AI initiatives. He's got over 30 years experience in cybersecurity, AI innovation, and software engineering. He's the author of Data-Driven Cybersecurity, Proven Metrics for Reducing Cyber Risk. Please join me and welcome into the show, Mariano Mattei.
And the applause.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. Best way to start off a Monday.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. So let's. I do want to give people some perspective. You matriculated, as they say, at Temple University.
Yes.
I'm just curious to know, like, what was the vision you had for your career back when you were an undergrad?
Oh, well, that's a funny story because I took software engineering or comp sci because computers were just always really easy for me. So I took it just as a fallback. I actually wanted to be a musician. So that did not pan out. So it was good to have the backup plan. So out of college, started programming, and I still kept the music going for, I don't know, 20 years or so. Stopped about 8 years ago.
Mariano, I have a real serious cyber question I want to ask you right now.
Fire away.
What instrument did you play?
Guitars were my main. I got them hung up on the wall. You can't see them because I got my black background blurred. But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I had a lot of. I was very much entrepreneurial spirit, so I've had a restaurant, a pizzeria, a music school, a recording studio for a number of years. One of the largest on the East Coast. So worked with a lot of bands, did band management. Tried to make it myself, but it's a lot harder to make it there than it is for cyber. So cyber paid off, you know.
Well, if you ever think about getting the music going back, Eric's a singer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's really good, Mariano. I mean, man,
We gotta have a karaoke night.
Man, let me tell you, he is a singer. So
nice.
Yeah,
I have one of those voices that make a grown man cry. That's what they say. So
he needs to sing solo.
If that's solo, you can't hear me.
Solo, you can't hear.
There you go.
Stealing that one. I'm going to use that one.
I think the business principle there is you got to stay. You got to know what your lane is. You got to stay in it.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah. I mean, you know, they say do what you love and the money will come. And it's not that I did not love computers and computer science and programming and cyber. I did, but, you know, it's not as glamorous as being a musician on tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there any lessons that you learned?
Tour, so.
Yeah, I'm just curious though, like, were there any lessons you learned in your pursuit of your musical dream that helped you to get to where you are today?
You know, it's funny. There are, I think, every industry, because I've seen this in both the music industry. I do films now as well. So film industry, music industry, comp sci industry, cybersecurity industry, they all have very specific set of known characters. And we always said, like me and my childhood friend, that we grew up together. We did the band together. We do movies together. He does. He is not in cyber, doesn't know much about computers at all. But we always said that we should write a book about this or do a movie about it, because each field has their own set of very specific characters that repeat. You know, because I've talked to other bands and they've run across the same kind of characters. So for me, it was always just knowing those people, you know what I mean? Getting to know those personalities and how to navigate those personalities that I found to be the most beneficial.
Mariano,
Yeah.
you sound like a pretty interesting guy, man.
I've
Like
done a lot.
music, film, cyber.
Food. I've been on TV, Food Network. Yep.
I mean, Eric's one of my best friends, but I'm like, can we be friends? I
Sure.
mean,
You see how it is, Mariano.
you gotta shoot your shot, like you said, man. I need some new friends.
You know, I always took a kind of a yes man philosophy to life. So as opportunities presented themselves, because I don't really, you know, I've had stage fright in the past, like, and I never knew why it would just spring up every now and again. But for the most part, I don't get nervous or, you know, I don't get the jitters or. So if something comes up and, you know, for example, my sister sends me this email they're looking for chefs, non-professional chefs, for a new show on the Food Network called Cooks versus Cons. And as a joke, I filled out the form, I pressed send, I wrote to my sister and I said, done. I left my apartment, and as I'm walking down the street, I got called by the producer. And then next thing you know, I'm filming on TV. I mean, it was hysterical. So it's just, you know, you just kind of see what the universe, open yourself up and see what the universe throws you and take advantage of it when somebody's knocking at that door.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's how a lot of big breaks happen.
Yeah,
Put yourself out there and it works out. So I'm just curious though, like if you could go back in time and talk to the undergraduate version of yourself, knowing what you now know, what advice would you give to that version of yourself?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, some things you can't be told. You know, some life lessons you know, I have kids, so I know that now. I know the pain my parents went through. Like my father would tell me the story. He said, you know, if everybody who had to create a wheel, had to make use of a wheel, had to figure it out for themselves, we would never advance, right? So you got to take advantage of my wisdom, my knowledge, and learn from it so you don't make the same mistakes. And I didn't appreciate that when I was younger, when he was telling me that story, but I certainly do appreciate it now. So I think that, you know, being a stubborn Italian kid from South Philadelphia, I probably wouldn't have listened to myself anyway. But I would have said that I would have balanced out more of the professional career, you know, with the dreams. The dreams are great, you know, but I think that I would have gone farther sooner had I taken my professional career a little bit more serious when I was younger than as the fallback plan.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you probably had more fun though. I mean,
I had a blast. Yeah. No regrets.
Yeah, that's the key though. At least you can't look back and say, man, you know what would have happened if, you know, at least you were able to kind of scratch that itch and kind of go for it.
And I think that a lot of people go through something similar where if you look back at your life, you see those crossroads. You know, you see like, oh, that day I had a choice and I chose this road, not that road.
Right.
And what may have happened if I chose that other road? So for example, my friend Fabian, who, you know, I was mentioning, we do a lot of artistic stuff together since childhood. He was in the Army at the time, and he's stationed in Korea. He was like, you got to come to Korea. You got to come to Korea. You'd be a rock star. I had long hair, you know, they'll love you. You know, you'll be famous over there. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to Korea. But right out of college, I ended up getting a job. And so I decided to take the job instead of taking 3 months off and going to Korea. So what would have happened? I don't know. You know,
you be a rock star.
maybe.
That's what your friend said.
Maybe I'd still have long hair. I don't know.
You maybe still have long hair and be a rock star.
Maybe. But I don't have any regrets. I I love life. Ups and downs and trials and tribulations, and you got to take the good with the bad. And I wake up every day and I'm breathing. That's a great start for me.
Absolutely.
So just be grateful and live. Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure. So shifting gears a little bit, right? So
Yeah.
you're certified Chief Information Security Officer.
Yeah.
So what are some of the mindset shifts that you think business owners need in today's climate, just kind of based off of your experience?
Yeah, I just segued it recently out of consulting, but I did consulting for almost 20 some years now. And in that field, unfortunately, most people found us when it was too late, right? So they would come to us after something happened, rather than before. And I think that they call it shift left in software development for DevSecOps, kind of shift the security left and have security be top of mind from inception. And it's easy to say, right? But it's very difficult. So I do a lot of work in life sciences. So you take pharmaceutical companies. You've got these young companies that are just starting out. They've got some seed money, and they've got a brilliant team, and they're scientists. So what do they, you don't, just because you're intelligent in one area doesn't mean you're intelligent in everything. So what do they know about how to set up networking, how to protect their IP, how to protect their data? And their money is going towards the science. And so, I think that if companies took cyber seriously, that's nowadays, especially, it's everything. We've seen companies, they've contacted us. We've had a few companies come to us and it was too late, and it tanked the company. And these are people that invested their life savings into building this company, and within 5 years they will infiltrate it, or something happened and they lost it all. And you just can't recover from that, So that's my suggestion is take cyber, especially now with AI. No one is safe. As soon as they started going after the hospitals, that's when you knew all bets were off, because now human life is meaningless.
Yeah.
Right. So it's all about the money. And in terms of gross national product, cyber crime is third. Right. It's the US, China, and cyber criminals. Right.
Wow.
So think about how massive of an industry that is. It's a tremendous amount of money being made.
So why don't you, with all the information that's out there, with all of we've all heard the horror stories. Someone has clicked on a link and literally lost their business. What is it that keeps a lot of the business owners from reaching out earlier?
Yeah, I think it's resources. That could be money, that could be people. But that's typically what it is, because they only have so much money, and they're running on when you're building a business, you're watching every dime. Yep. And to truly, let's say, implement something like zero trust across the board, it gets expensive, because you have to make use of a lot of different tools along the way. And sometimes, you can't necessarily spend $1 million to protect $250,000 of IP, right? So
yeah,
you have to balance it, and it's in that balance that is the sticky point. That's the hard part.
So Mariano, zero trust. What is that? I know Eric has his definition for zero trust.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, in I guess layman's terms, is that anytime anybody does anything, it is verified before you're able to proceed. So who are you? Should you have access? Do you have the rights and the permissions to be there? Is that part of your job role? So if I'm computer programming and all of a sudden I'm trying to access personnel files, a flag should go up, right? Or I shouldn't even have access to it. And I'll say this because I have these conversations with CISOs, at these large meetings, and I say this all the time. Nobody likes to hear it, but if an employee in your company can click a link in an email and destroy your company, we're doing something wrong. Meaning, you're the CISO of the company, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
it shouldn't even be a possibility.
Hmm.
Right. So training and all of that and awareness and all of that, there's a lot more social engineering taking place now. You've got AI impersonating voices. You've got, the emails are much better. Long gone are the days of misspellings to be your red flag. And so, yeah, you should be aware. Should you be vigilant? Should you train your employees? Absolutely. Should you test them? Absolutely. Phishing campaigns and whatnot. But in the end, that person, anybody in your company should not be able to click a link and then all of a sudden you're losing your cloud server. There's something wrong there.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense because people forget stuff, and then the people are so creative in how they send emails and things like that. There's a good chance that the intern that's there for the summer could click it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what role, like if you look at these business leaders, they don't have the title IT like in their description, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think what's their role in cybersecurity planning?
I mean, I think that everything really should come from the top level. So the CEO on down should really set that tone that cybersecurity is important to the company, right? And the old saying is the only way to really protect your assets is not to put them online, right? So as soon as it goes online, you should have some protections in place, and you should take it seriously. And that tone has to be set at the CEO level on down. Otherwise, people aren't going to take it seriously.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. And what are some of the other common cyber mistakes that you see that are being made that people need to be avoiding?
I mean, we can go down a number of different paths, but there are a lot of companies that still have very flat networks. So when we were doing like the cool cybersecurity stuff, like when we would go out to a company to see if we could infiltrate it, and the first thing we would do is plug into their phone system. And lo and behold, a lot of times, if you get assigned an IP on my laptop with Kali Linux installed and I plug it into your phone system, all of a sudden I've got access to every single IP address in your company. It's just the network's flat. It's not segmented at all. There's no protections in place. There's a bunch of stories where we would walk in, we would plug into the wall, an Ethernet cable in the wall, have a Raspberry Pi up top with a hard drive, and just see what data we can start taking. Nobody checks the cabinet. It's an empty cubicle, and their network is flat. So that's a big one. Same thing with Wi-Fi, guest network Wi-Fi is not being separate than your corporate Wi-Fi. That's another big one. We're having your Wi-Fi settings where if I pull up the van outside your building, I have access to your Wi-Fi. Just something as simple as that, right? And there's a bunch of different schools of thought because I've been at certain universities where the IT people were like, well, no matter what we do, they're going to be able to break into it. So we just leave everything open. And I was speechless. I mean, how easy can you make it for someone? Now you're just asking for it, right?
You don't think I've heard that philosophy before.
Yeah, I've heard that once, and I was dumbfounded.
We're just gonna save their time. We're not gonna.
Yeah,
we're not gonna even try to lock
you're not trying.
What's the point?
Welcome, all are welcome.
Yes, come on in.
Steal our data.
For those of you listening, that's an example of what not to do.
What not to do.
Don't write that one down.
No.
To do for sure. But I mean, there's so many different, like if you, what I like to do at companies when I come in, if they're open to it and they have the resources available, is really walk them through that cloud to chip zero trust architecture, right? So like every step of the way, there are things in place, and now you have this layered security. It just makes it that much more difficult for someone to break in, and it's a time game too, right? So if you make it difficult, and they're spending, they have. So if you walk into one of these cyber criminal, they're using Salesforce. They have quotas, and I'm a hacker, and I have to break into so many companies a month. And I'm wasting time trying to break into your company and has all these layers, and I'm getting frustrated. Now time is money, right? Time is my money. So I might move on to something a little bit easier. So I guess the lesson really is make it as difficult as possible, as difficult as you can afford to make it.
So
Sure.
so basically, it's just like having a couple locks on the door. Your your screen door is locked, and you got an alarm in there, and then you got a big dog in
Yeah,
there,
right,
and then you got to go. So if they get through all of that,
right. And then they turn around, right?
and then you know,
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. So let's talk about your book. So what inspired you to write data-driven cybersecurity?
So I actually I had recently gone back to Temple University for my master's in cyber defense and information assurance. It's something that I wanted to do. The long-term plan is to go after a PhD. So I'm waiting for opportunities to open up for that as well. But during one of the independent studies, I had the idea for a metrics book, because one of the big things that I found going into companies, which is why I've been trying and finally have gotten away from consulting, is that I usually get called in. You kind of go in, you put out the fires, you get them set up, and then thank you for your services, and then you leave. You're not there for long term. But I would say there were 2 companies that actually took good metrics, that measured them on a monthly basis, and then reported on them to the team and to the board. And I couldn't understand why other people weren't doing this. And the idea was, if you go to a board meeting, at no board meeting will the CFO not stand up and give you the charts of profits, losses, expenses. There's no way you're not going to have a data-driven conversation about your posture as a company, right?
Right.
It's going to happen at every single board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And why is it never that cybersecurity is not coming in and giving a presentation on their numbers? And I didn't see it. So I did research. There were no books on it. And I said, well, somebody's got to write the book on it. So I decided to write the book on it. Now, I was going to do it just as a project. And one of my professors, Derek Fisher at Temple University, who is now the director of the cyber program, he had a relationship with a publishing company, Manning Publishing. And I had tried other publishers and immediately turned down. And what I found out later was that typically now you really do need that personal introduction. So I wrote to Derek Fisher and I said, hey, how would you feel? Here's my idea. I sent him all my information. I said, if you think this is worthwhile, how would you feel about a personal introduction to your publisher? And he wrote this beautiful email after looking over the material. And next thing you know, I got a publishing deal. So hopefully it'll be out in print in a few months. We're on the final draft versions of it. So, yeah, that was the inspiration for it. And I'm just surprised that more companies just don't have metrics that are out there that show how well the money, because it's a tremendous amount of money that they're spending, right? It's usually a percentage of the IT budget, but whatever that is, whether it's 30, 40, 50% sometimes, give or take, what's that money doing? How well is that money performing? And so I think it's important that you report back to the people in charge of giving you that money that says, we're doing a really great job and thank you for the money, or we're not doing such a good job and we need more. We need to take it more seriously. And here are the gaps. And you can do that not from a cyber perspective and not from an IT perspective, because a lot of the board members don't speak that language. So how do you translate that? You put it in terms of dollars and cents, because they'll understand that, right? Because they're running a business. So much of the book is geared towards how do you report it? What does the CIO look for as opposed to the CEO, given the same data set? So I spend a lot of time on exercises like that in the book, and it's more for the data analyst all the way up actually to the CEO to say, this makes sense. Wouldn't it be great to have this dashboard available at all times?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the big takeaway, let's say a CEO is going to get from this book, is to really make the cyber aspect as just as measurable as any other aspect of the business when it's being presented.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is that the data is there. Most of the data, I'm not asking people to set up anything special. Most of the data is there. It's not being collected. It's not being aggregated. It's not being cleaned. It's not being analyzed. So what data, I mean, data is money in nowadays, right? So how are you not taking data that is yours and making good use of it?
No, that's great. Looks like your book is
I hope,
data. Like you're right. In my travels, I don't really see the breakdown on like
yeah,
IT and cybersecurity like you do in other aspects of the business. So
right.
okay, all right. So that you've led these AI transformations both in biotech and in pharma. So what are like the biggest lessons that you see that translate into other industries?
I mean, for AI in particular.
Yes.
So, I mean, as you guys are aware, and there's a lot of people that'll spread the fear. I'm not in for fear. I'm in for you're not going to stop it no matter what. So don't be afraid of it. Embrace it, right? Prepare for it. So AI is going to be one of the biggest industry disruptors that we've seen in a long time. Bigger than email, bigger than the internet itself. It's going to literally infiltrate just about every aspect of every job. Right. And so the saying is AI is not going to replace your lawyer, but it will, the lawyer that makes use of AI will replace the lawyer that doesn't. And that's true for every industry.
Hey,
So
hey Mariano,
adopt it early and learn early.
Mariano,
Yeah.
Mariano, in layman's terms, what is AI?
So AI from a data scientist perspective, we've been using it for 20, 25 years now, right? That's machine learning, that's predictive algorithms, that's taking a data set, learning from it, and making predictions as to what's going to happen in the future. That's machine learning. There's neural networks, natural language processing, deep learning. All of these things are used all the time, and they've been around for a while. We were not allowed to call it artificial intelligence because technically it wasn't an artificial intelligent system, right? But it all folds under AI. Now, when we say AI today, of course, we think ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, a large language model. And that's really what AI has been synonymous with now, is that large language model. So you've got generative AI, which is your ChatGPTs. Then you've got your agentic AI, which is basically making use of those large language models, but it has the ability to take an action. So an agent, going back to the movie The Matrix, an agent can actually affect things, that can actually do things, not just provide you with information or further understanding.
No, that's good. Eric, I'm gonna need you to repeat that.
I'll tell you later.
There you go, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. I like what you said there about the importance of really embracing AI and the analogy of the two lawyers.
Yeah.
Uh, so, up to this point, it feels like we've been playing defense and talking defense, right? Cybersecurity and risk and all of that good stuff. Now, I want to shift. Let's talk a little offense.
Okay.
Like, what are some of the opportunities that you see for business owners in the next 5 years, just with this AI component being in place? What are some of the opportunities?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of. I mean, there's tremendous amount of work and investment being done into products. Not, I'm just about every product now says AI is embedded in their product in some form or fashion, right? But there's a couple of companies that have been doing some really interesting work. So, for example, we have what we call a security information and event management system, right? A SIM or SOAR, which basically analyzes all of the network traffic within your environment, and it keys off of some rules, and it'll send an alarm to an analyst, and an analyst looks at the alarm and says, is this something I should be concerned about? Should I raise a flag? Should I shut this down? Should I contact support? Should we take action on it, right? There's a tremendous amount of alert fatigue that comes along with that. So you need people watching the screen 24/7. You need analysts with different levels of support that, level 1 says, no, this should be level 2, raise raise the severity, and it goes all the way up, and then maybe they take action on it or not. But a lot of times, to do the investigative part of that takes a tremendous amount of time. So now what they have are streaming LLMs, right? So the streaming LLM is not something like, so right now you would be able to take a log, send it up to a large language model, say, analyze this, let's have some fun, give me some insights into it. Is there anything I should be concerned about in it? It's really good at handling large amounts of data, right? But it does it in chunks. So now with streaming large language models, it can actually just listen. It just listens. And it can do it way faster than a human can, right? And it can start making these predictions. They start making these analyses, and then providing you with a much more actionable alert that saves you time and money, because now you're only getting the alerts that it's serious. You need to look at it, right? Because the AI itself is doing the analysis in real time. So that's like one of the areas that I see from a cyber perspective anyway, where AI is really going to make a big difference.
Great. Okay. So now we're at Ted's favorite part of the show, Mariano. It's called Write This Down.
This is not my favorite part of the show,
Ted has been looking forward to this the whole day.
I have not, Mariano. I never look forward to this part.
Right, now I'm getting what is
so this is where we each go around and we give at least one takeaway from today's episode that we feel like the people need to write down so they can level up. So Mariano, you're the guest of honor. What do you feel the people need to write down based on today's show?
I'm a firm believer in manifesting your own destiny. So put it out there, put it out there, set your goals, put it out there. And usually the universe will give you what it is that you want.
All right. Write that down.
Sometimes more what you need than what you want, but you'll find that out later.
Manifest your destiny.
That's right.
All right. Good stuff. All right, Ted.
No, I guess the reason I don't like this, Mariano, is because I have to follow behind the guests, and they usually say something really deep, like you said, and then while I'm trying to figure something out, Eric is working, right? Because he's trying to get something as well. So yeah, sometimes I'm gonna start getting him to go second. The biggest thing I think came out of this for me is the whole layered security approach. Right, I joked about it, from a standpoint of your home, right? But within your infrastructure, your IT operations, there's having security policy and training and all of that. But then you can't just trust that the people paid attention in the training, right? So you got to have some things in place that are gonna detect when things are happening, and take into account that you're dealing with humans, and humans will, from time to time make mistakes. And so having those different things in place is critical. And then, the whole thing that you just talked about of just kind of, you think about the term zero trust. And it's like, what is it? You don't trust nobody, right? You don't trust anyone, right? And you just put enough things in place to make sure that you're covered, and that data needs to be protected, and all of that. I mean, you do all you can to wrap those layers of security around it. So I know that's what Eric was gonna say. So I think I beat him to it. But yeah,
I got to come up with something on the fly here.
I tried to give you enough time, Eric. But what you got?
So I mean, my contribution to this is just, I think, the importance of making data-driven decisions, right? And it's just amazing that we do have a lot of companies that don't have the same level of measurement that they would for a different aspect of the business. So, you're talking about commercial sales, you talk about this, you talk about that. When you start getting into IT, you don't have the same, profit and loss, return on investment level of focus. And I just think, I always say to people, look, you can get mad with me, but you can't get mad with math, right? The math tells a story. The math is objective.
Tells a story. Correct.
Right. So I think the thing to write down is you need to always be making data-driven decisions. The data takes the emotion right out of it. Yeah,
Wise.
this has been an excellent episode.
Eric, that was pretty good, man.
That was
Yeah,
good.
man.
The whole data-driven thing, like you sounded.
You brought it all back. That's great.
Yeah, man, that was good.
You saw what I did there, Ted.
Yeah, that was impressive. I was like, you talking about data-driven decision. Okay, good job.
All right. So Mariano,
Yeah.
how can the people best connect with you? I mean, you got this book coming out, and they want to get the book and talk about cybersecurity and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Give
yeah.
them your cell, give them your house phone.
Personal home address.
I mean, LinkedIn really is the way to go for me. So I mean, all my information is there. So yeah, LinkedIn. I think Manning is going to be putting up a discount code for this podcast, and so yeah, you'll be able to save some money too. We'll do some postings on LinkedIn about that as well.
Yeah, we'll need to make sure we get all that in the show notes so people can take advantage of that offer.
Thank you.
So fantastic. So thank you for sharing everything that you shared.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah, I learned something new. I did.
Great.
Wasn't aware of the extent of your rock star background there.
Yeah, man. What could have been? What could have been?
You never know. Still videos of me out there. So
really?
Oh yeah.
Please make sure you send
music videos. Our movies are out there as well. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff going on.
As I said earlier, can we be friends? Like
Yeah.
Eric doesn't do a whole lot of interesting.
We can hang out.
We just do podcasts and other stuff, but like you sound real. It's hard to make friends in your midlife, man. I mean, you pick interesting friends, right? Because you have friends that you grow up with, and you just hope that they just evolve it. Come on, I'm just gonna pick friends, man. So yeah, can we be friends?
Let's do it. Let's get together.
Eric, you hear that now? I'm gonna be reaching out to him. He's gonna be like, "Who?"
It's like Ted Phils. Let that go right to voicemail.
Podcast. You said we could be friends.
Let that go right to voicemail.
There you go.
All right.
So,
those of you that are listening and watching, don't forget to share the show.
Share the show.
Don't keep great information a secret.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all those places and hear this episode and other episodes of the 30-Minute Hour podcast. You can hit follow. You can hit subscribe, whatever applies to the particular platform. And that way, you'll never miss a future episode. You get the automatic notification. Again, we thank Mariano for everything that he shared today.
Thank you.
That's our time for this week. And until next time, have a great one.
See y'all.